So it appears that Nina Turner and Jimmy Dore got into a pretty heated back and forth over on Twitter, with this all going back to the FBI raid that just occurred on Donald Trump. So a lot of different things going on. Obviously, we know that Jimmy Dore has a tendency now to defend Donald Trump and conservatives in general, but mostly he seems to really have attached himself to Trump. In fact, in one video, he actually stated that if you're anti-war, you should have supported Donald Trump against Joe Biden in 2020. So he's essentially already said that he should have supported Joe Biden for president, or Donald Trump for president, but he needs to keep the plausible deniability and the lack of clarity. Similar tactic that Jordan Peterson used. It's a very typical grifter tactic where you prevent any clear pigeonholing of yourself or any clear outlining of what you're doing or what you're saying in order to be able to play multiple sides. So it's not even really clear what or who he supports right now. But, it's going to come up again in this conversation. Now, Nina Turner sent out a tweet 2 days ago. She said, "My prediction of the fallout of the FBI raiding Mar-a-Lago is that we're probably going to see a bunch of MAGA Republicans call to abolish the FBI." And it turns out that this was true. We've seen a lot of, at least the more fringe people, at least saw Marjorie Taylor Greene send out a tweet saying, abolish the FBI. Super interesting to see because Republicans are the tough on, supposedly, right, ostensibly, they are the tough on crime party. They are the party that is all about law and order. It's all about, the blue, protecting the blue or whatever it is. And so to see this is really, really hilarious, right? So she's absolutely right. But Jimmy Dore is very angry at this, as Jimmy Dore usually gets when he's under the influence, I'm sure, 24/7 of lots of alcohol. He says, when lefties, I love how he just capitalizes lefties for no reason. When lefties cheer on the FBI, they're serious about being a Democrat. And so he here is accusing Nina Turner of being a He's accusing her of multiple things. He's first of all accusing her of cheering on the FBI. I'm not seeing how this tweet is evidence of Nina Turner cheering on the FBI. There doesn't really seem to be any evidence here that this is quote unquote cheering on the FBI. And number two, he's accusing her of basically trying to be a more establishment Democrat, right? Going into that, obviously, that's what he wants to do. He just wants to call everyone establishment Democrats so that he can just kind of sit in his corner and jerk off or have other people, whack off to him, obviously. But if you read this tweet, my prediction of the fallout of the FBI raiding Mar-a-Lago is we're probably going to see a bunch of MAGA Republicans call to abolish the FBI. Does this sound like something that is cheering on the FBI or something that is pro-FBI? All she's really doing here is making a descriptive statement, which is essentially saying that MAGA Republicans are going to say to abolish the FBI when they've supposedly been, the law and order people, right? So this is not something that meets even the bar for cheering on the FBI. But even if we were to quote-unquote say it was like cheering on the FBI, let's say you were happy that Donald Trump got raided by the FBI, there's a big question as to whether or not that would be cheering on the FBI as an institution versus like just hoping in a micro sense that there would, or maybe in even a more macro sense, that, the law applies to the president of the United States. Given that we know what structure we exist in, right? The FBI is not going to be abolished anytime soon, and that's not in the Overton window right now. So if you were to be happy that the FBI raided Donald Trump because he's committed a bunch of crimes and you want him to be prosecuted, are you cheering on the FBI if you're happy that the FBI raided him? Like, I'm not convinced of that personally. But Nina Turner responded. She says, when Jimmy Dore knocks a black progressive woman for pointing out conservatives' hypocrisy when it comes to the FBI, he's serious about being anti-black and protecting conservatives. So a couple of allegations and accusations being lodged here. She's trying to create this into a race thing as well. Saying he's serious about being anti-black and protecting conservatives. So whether or not she's saying that his statement itself is anti-black, or if like the ramifications and the general stuff that he's contributing to is anti-black isn't 100% clear from this tweet alone. But what it is pretty clear is he does seem to love protecting conservatives. That's all he does now. All he does is protect conservatives. He doesn't criticize Republicans, and he only shits on all Democrats. So factually, I would say is an empirically factual statement that cannot be debated. He does protect conservatives all day long. That's his job. He gets paid to protect conservatives, and it seems specifically he likes to protect Donald Trump the most because he tries to paint him as being the more lefty, conservative, or like the true lefty conservative is what he tries to paint him as. So I'd say that's not debatable. Is Jimmy Dore anti-black or against women and stuff like that? It does also seem empirically true that the people he goes after, generally speaking, there seems to be a propensity towards women. But I'm not going to say that propensity that he has towards attacking mostly women comes down to him being a misogynist or him being anti-black. I'm not going to say that Jimmy Dore, based on what I've seen, is anti-black or that he is a misogynist. I don't think that what I've seen rises to that level just yet. Now, that could change in the future depending upon what kind of content or what he says in the future. But as of right now, I don't feel comfortable saying that. She also says conservatives were okay with the FBI when it came to the Panthers, MLK, and Malcolm X. Now they have a problem with it. If you have a problem with me pointing that out, you're doing the bidding of these conservatives, which Jimmy is. And I would say that's also true. I would say you are doing the bidding of conservatives too, if you're going to get mad at her for pointing out that, hey, Republicans loved the FBI in the past, but now all of a sudden when it's turned on them, they don't like it. And again, I don't think her statement was cheering on the FBI. I just can't say that that's what it is. And she says, and yes, doing the bidding of those conservatives by using a black woman's words is in fact anti-black. So it doesn't seem like she's saying directly that like what he's saying is anti-black, but more so, I guess, like the ramifications or what he's contributing to is anti-black. Which I guess you could argue it is, but I would certainly say that his statements alone are not anti-black. But maybe you could argue that, hey, like what he's doing is anti-black and that he's using a black woman's words, attacking a black woman's words when it's talking about the FBI, especially when it has to do with like the Panthers, MLK, and Malcolm X, etc. But I'm not going to agree with necessarily her statements when it comes to, on race. Now, Jordan Sheridan says, weird how Jimmy was pro-FBI when there was a chance that Comey would indict Hillary Clinton over her private server, but is anti-FBI cheering when it comes to Trump. So this is the thing, right? There's a question of whether or not the statement that Nina Turner had made was quote-unquote cheering on the FBI, right? There's a big question about that. Does it meet that bar? I don't think it does. But if hypothetically I were to grant you the premise that Nina Turner's statement did indeed rise to that level, you would have to ask yourself, Jimmy Dore was very, very, obviously anti-Hillary Clinton, as all of us were, right? And the whole FBI situation. He was clearly talking about that case and, bigging up that case of that FBI investigation. And so were his comments that he made or his coverage and stuff like that about wanting the FBI to prosecute her, was that also pro-FBI? I also don't really see that as being a statement that's, quote, pro-FBI. So I think it's just hypocritical to use it here. And I would say that neither of the statements or comments are pro-FBI. But if you are to say that Nina Turner's pro-FBI for pointing out hypocrisy amongst the right wing about the FBI, I would say that you're talking and supporting, the FBI's prosecutions into Hillary Clinton were also, pro-FBI or FBI cheering or whatever. But I just find it to be questionable at best whether or not that's quote unquote FBI cheering. I just don't buy that personally. She also says this. She says, if you take right-wing money while running against progressives, you're a conservative. If you use right-wing talking points against progressives, you're a conservative. So, you see this really applies to Jimmy Dore. If you use right-wing talking points against progressives, you're a conservative. So Jimmy Dore, like I said, there's a big question. It's not really clear what Jimmy Dore is because these grifters have to make sure that they don't make it clear what they actually are, because it allows them to be able to do the most maneuvering possible, right? Because you could be a right-winger. The right-wingers can think that you're a right-winger, and so they hear you, not right-winger. The right-wingers think that you're a liberal. You're out there saying all this conservative stuff, so they love you because now you're the liberal who's saying all the conservative stuff. And then all of his fans can go to the liberals and say, oh, he's liberal, he's left-wing. And so if he were to clearly come out and say, I support Donald Trump and stuff like that, then their fans can't say that he's a liberal or left, right? So it's not really clear, but I would agree that he at the very least is a Trumpian conservative, or he's a right-winger. I would agree. All he does is attack Democrats. He never defends any Democrats. He never attacks conservatives. He only defends conservatives. So I would agree definitely that he is a conservative, at least when you take everything into account. I would definitely agree. Or he's at least a Trump supporter. He straight up said in his video saying that you should have supported Trump if you're anti-war. His statement was, if you're anti-war, you should have voted for Donald Trump. So if we just use like basic Aristotelian logic and just say, okay, our first statement is, if you are anti-war, you should have supported Donald Trump. Our second statement, our premise two, is Jimmy Dore is anti-war. Our conclusion could easily be Jimmy Dore should have supported Donald Trump. Now, he's too much of a weenie to come out and say, I should have voted for Donald Trump, or who knows. He probably did vote for Trump, actually. I'm like 99% sure that he did. But he's too much of a wiener to come out and say that because, he wants to be able to keep being a grifter like he is. So I would agree. I don't think that her comments were cheering on the FBI, and I think that being happy that Donald Trump is being brought to account for his crimes doesn't make you pro FBI at all. I just personally, I just can't see it that way. And again, like I said, like the FBI is not going to be abolished, and so being happy that the FBI is prosecuting government officials who have committed crimes is a good thing. Is an okay, at the very least, okay thing to do, even if you're, anti-FBI.